Yeah, films. We watched some films. Now let's talk about those films.
Yes. So, like I said, we are talking about Turning Red, and this film is from 2022, brand new, and it is about a 13-year-old girl named Mei Lin turns into a giant red panda whenever she gets too excited, and it's directed by Dong Hee Shi. Um, which is just right to the point. That's exactly what happens. She becomes a red panda.
Yeah.
But it's also so much more than that. So I'm very excited to talk about this. And if you have watched it, I really um, would love to hear from you and what your experiences are. I've talked to young people who are like a little younger than this age that's occurring here, and I'm very curious to hear like if this movie will affect how they experience puberty later, like if
Yeah.
it will be a beneficial thing for
Yeah, I
them.
wonder if they feel seen too.
Mhm. 'Cause I definitely did. I was like, and that's not like I mean, I'm not the target demographic, but I also feel very seen in it. So Turning Red follows May, who is an ordinary preteen girl with amazing friends and a beautiful relationship with her mom. She is incredibly close to her mother, and she spends her time outside of school working at the family business. She is super obsessed with a boy band, and she's just discovering that real boys can be pretty cute and make really great mermen, which is
Yeah.
very fun. And this film brings us along May's journey of self discovery and growth. And as May begins her puberty process, she also discovers an old hidden family secret. She and the other women in her family are wear red pandas.
Yeah.
They turn into red pandas when they feel too many emotions. So in the IMDb synopsis, it said when she was too excited, but it also like when she was angry. It was just any emotion that was not regulated,
Yeah.
um, quote unquote, to like what is acceptable. Um, she would turn into a giant red panda. And at first, May is stressed by this change because there's like hair in unexpected places, no control of our emotions. Our body is so foreign to us now, and our
Yeah.
parents just couldn't possibly understand. Like, here we are again in puberty world. Um, and you also may wonder, like, since this is like a matriarchal thing, like it's all the female line of the family, like why May's mom didn't tell her about the red panda beforehand. And we
Yeah.
we asked that like every time. Like with last week, what blew my mind, we were like, if you know about mermaids, why wouldn't you tell her? We had something like that. Oh well, yeah. It's just like if you know ahead of time, and she clearly knows ahead of time because her
Yeah.
mom was a
It's
is
like, why
also has
wouldn't
a red
you
panda.
prepare them?
Yeah. But, they do mention, like, May's mother mentions, that she thought they'd have more time,
Yeah.
and that felt really real to me because I understood, like, how there's, like, a difference in how soon people are growing up, like, because of,
Yeah.
like, society, and so, like, I like, considering, like, people my age, we tended to mature and go through puberty faster than our parents, or at least, like, that was my experience and some other people I've talked to, their experience, where, like, I got my period when I was, like, 12 or 13, which is,
Yeah.
like, what's happening in this film, whereas, like, my mother got hers, like, later than that. So like she has this kind of perception of like kids kind of grow a bit too fast these days, but also it's like sometimes you want to preserve their youth, right? Like this
Yeah.
is such a jarring
You have
thing.
like a view of them as if they're still like a little kid. So like you feel like you have more time and then suddenly they're a teenager.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what's happening like on the outside end of things, right? Is like she is very clearly the mom kind of wrestling with the fact that May is going to grow up. Like now she's noticing boys, she read all those things and now she's like, "Oh no." So this is a typical coming of age monstrous femme story, but it's also so much more than that, which is what we found in a lot of these films because May learns to appreciate her red panda. With the help of her friends, she turns the panda into a positive experience. Other kids love it and like get a kick out of how cute it is, and just like also like May is very adorable and sweet and just like a really fun human, and people
Yeah.
really that about her. And so she soon begins make and bake using the red panda and selling red panda merch
Yeah.
with the intent of using that money to go to a beloved concert. of her favorite boys, Four Town, which is just
Yeah.
a boy band. And it's super cute. There's 5 of them. I don't know why they're called Four Town. The song is super cute. It's like, "You don't turn no one turns my tummy quite like you." It's so
Yeah.
childish. I will say, her and her friends, great dynamic. Not a single one of them argued over which boy was theirs. And
Yeah.
I was like, that I always had that problem. People were like, "You can't have this one." And I'm like, "What? That's it's not real."
Yeah, like, you're never
Why
going to
can't
meet
I have
them, so I think
Um,
anybody can hypothetically have anybody, so
yes, this is all made up in our brains and
yeah.
on pieces of paper when we play MASH. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a problem.
Also, if it was real, it'd be a problem because
Yeah,
there's an age
because they're
difference.
adults, and I'm 12. So,
Yeah.
but I did think it was funny that they were
Yeah.
like, "That's your you stand that one." Um, That's how I feel about BTS. I
Yeah. I
change a
mean, they
boy
had
every
the
week.
best friends. Like, I wish I had those friends. I have those friends now, but, like, I wish or I have that friend now. You are that. You are all 4
For
friends
I,
in
d-
one.
change my personality however it feels. I will say, like, her friends, I appreciate how different they all are.
Yeah.
Um, Abby is like my life energy. If you're watching, that's who I'm dressed as because she's just like this little terror gremlin. And I was like, I feel so strongly about her every single time. She's just like, yeah, get him. And she's like, my mom said I can't listen to that music because it's stripper music. And I said, what's wrong with that? And I was like, I love this little kid so much.
Yeah.
And then there's Priya, is that her name? There's like the one who's really, really quiet, and she's like,
Yeah.
she doesn't emote in ways that like we usually see, but she's never ridiculed for that.
Yeah, she's
Like
the chill one.
she just gets to be that,
Yeah.
And then you got like the cool, yeah, they all have their own little things. They're super cute. And so important to have like these different girls that people can relate to. Um, Especially when you're growing up, especially about in a film where you're gonna see like your experiences
Well, yeah,
kind
because
of
there's,
work.
like, not one way to be a girl, so it's, like, cool
Mhm.
to have many different perceptions of what that could look like.
Yeah, exactly. Um, However, there's a problem in the film because the night of the concert, the beloved concert of Four Town, happens to fall on the same night of her ceremony. I forget what they called it in the film, but essentially, to control her panda, her red panda, she needed to undergo the ceremony where she would separate from her red panda and contain it in a piece of jewelry. So all
Yeah,
the women in our family have done this, and it has to be on this like red moon, and it's this you only get one opportunity, one shot, one opportunity. You're gonna
gonna
you're gonna
capture
lose
it.
it. um and so she's conflicted, right? uh
Yeah,
Part of that is because she's not entirely sure she wants to give up her red panda. Like, she's grown really attached to it, um and she doesn't really see it as the monster that her family sees their pandas as,
yeah,
because she has with her friends in that relationship learned to really like coexist with it in a way that no one else had, um, which makes her situation unique. But also, it's like you gotta go see the boys. This is like once in a lifetime opportunity, you know.
yeah.
Um, I probably did not go to a concert until I was like in high school, though. So, but that's me because I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. Um, had a very strict family. So it gets to this question where it's like, will May sacrifice her new red panda powers to become normal? Or will she learn to love her red panda and find the beauty in what makes us monstrous? And that's what I really appreciate about this film. And some of the other films that we've covered in this series is like kind of taking back our monster instead of
Yeah.
being made victim because of our monster, and hating ourselves. So, um, really, really highly recommend. I will say though that as much love as this film has gotten, like I said, fans of Encanto are really excited for this future of wholesome, loving movies about family growth and representation. But there's also been a bit of backlash from viewers that I want to address because I think it's like interesting to hear some of the points. There was like one that like the girls are growing up a little too fast from their point of view, like, oh, they like boys and blah blah blah, and she sneaks out and yada yada. I was like, yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at that
She's it.
age, I liked a different person every week,
Yeah.
to the point where, like, we had to make code names for them. So I feel like it was pretty accurate. I was
You have
like,
code
I
names for the
love
boys
this
that you like?
person this week. And then now I love this person this week. And my friends and I had a code. So when, because we had to write our journals in eighth grade English,
Mhm.
and our teacher, I didn't want them to know because they would be in the class. So I was like, I'm going to give them a code name. And that way we could talk about them in front of other people and no one would know. Like we thought we were so cool. Um, but yeah, it was like a different person each week. I was like,
Yeah.
I
I
love
moved a lot when
everybody.
I was younger, and I will say every time I moved, when I had to, like, get a new class, I was always like, "I'm gonna have" like, I would go in with the intention of having one crush, at
Yeah.
least. I was like, "I'm gonna have a crush. Who's it? Who's gonna be it? Which lucky boy or person in this class is gonna be my crush this week?" And then,
Mine was like
here I am.
someone was nice to me for 2 seconds and I
No,
was like in love.
I was like, "It's gonna be you today." I am we're both pansexual, so it was always like personality driven. Like someone was like really funny and I
Yeah.
was like, "Wow, he seems really cute now when he wasn't before."
Yeah.
It happened all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the complaints I've seen was I don't see myself in this film. So there was a review by a white man explaining that he doesn't see himself in a movie like Turning Red, and he expressed distaste for the film for lacking in his experiences. And there's a lot to unpack in that idea, but I want to start by saying that I think it's okay for one of the millions of things out there to not be about a white man or the white person's experience at all. Just
Yeah.
one out of the everything else. Sorry. We have to get one at least. Been there, seen that. It makes me think of like Jordan Peele when he said he doesn't see himself ever casting a white male lead in his films because he's already seen that movie.
Yeah.
And I agree. We've already seen that. We all have. It doesn't have to be about you, dude. And it's like let other people have a chance to tell their stories. We need to rotate the crops or else our land will rot.
Yeah.
That's all. But further than that, the other part of this is that this is a person that is simply out of practice. He has not had to work to identify with a piece of media before because it was already made for him. Always. And so,
Yeah.
as an incredibly mixed femme person, I have had an entire lifetime of practice finding a connection with characters that do not look like me. You learn to find other parts of their experience to bond over. Like, I'm not Asian, although I am Canadian. And so I can't entirely relate to May's experience, but I can relate in ways that I've always done in media. Like I had similar experiences growing up, and there are many other pieces to the story that I really relate to that I'll expand on later.
Yeah.
Like for some of us, we've had to just grasp anything that we can relate to because there's nothing out there that can really symbolize our experiences specifically. Like that's never going to happen unless I write it because for one I'm very unique, but like
Yeah.
besides that like uh we just don't have those stories. It's just not out there. So like growing up, there were no and continue to not be any Disney princesses for me. I either had to be indigenous or Indian. Like
Yeah.
that was my option because they were brown enough that I was like, oh, I could do that. But even my Latina heroes weren't quite for me. Like Selena Quintanilla is a Mexican American, and I'm Puerto Rican American, so I couldn't identify. Like I'm not Mexican, so I don't have that direct connection to her. But I could identify with her dual identity as a Latina American who doesn't fit into either identity entirely. Like
Yeah.
you don't feel at home in Mexico, she doesn't feel home here. And it's like, I feel that. The fact that she
Yeah.
couldn't speak Spanish fluently, I was like, oh my God, we're the same person. So my response to this man's outcry of lack of representation is simply figure it out.
Yeah.
Find what parts of you are in this piece and understand that there is no one singular story to tell. There's a
Yeah.
multitude of them, and sometimes we just have to find the pieces that matter to us. And so I tell them to like put on his media analysis glasses,
Yeah.
give it another shot, and maybe you'll find things that you actually relate to. Or not even just maybe you like uh relate to any of the other characters in there, like her father or her mother or the other girls or the little boy. Like there's so
Yeah.
many people in that show that you could definitely anyway, the other negative review that I want to address is about May's mother, Ming, and her grandmother specifically, because there's been a lot of hate towards her for being too overbearing and controlling of her daughter, and then her mother of her.
Yeah.
And there's also similar vitriol towards Alma of Encanto. And
Yeah.
firstly, how many mothers are even alive in Disney to be criticized? Like,
Yeah.
let's give them some props for not having anime mom disease and dying off camera, first
Yeah.
of all. But also, these are women who are existing under some very extreme and traumatic societal pressures that those other Disney moms wouldn't understand, even if they
Yeah.
were alive. There were parts where Turning Red reminded me of Brave quite a bit. I mean, turn my mom to a bear like that, like
Yeah.
they're both bears anyway. But the exploration of that mother-daughter bond, the pressures of young girls, their experience to perform and uphold certain like traditional values that their mothers are like putting on their shoulders is present in both of these films.
Yeah.
But it's like further exasperated because Ming and her mother have the added pressure of being like immigrants, of like Brave Merida's mom is the queen. You know,
Yeah.
like there's no one who fits more into this environment than the queen. Ming and her mother are not that. So there's this added stress of having to fit into a society that doesn't want them to. And so there's a lot of stress on them to conform and to
Yeah.
perform this perfect person. And so that adds to that. Um, and you know they're essentially outcasts in their own homes, and then Alma literally fled persecution and watched her husband murdered in front of her. Sorry for spoilers, but I think we could cut her some slack.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? She raised triplets on her own. Like, what
Yeah.
are we doing? We're How dare you? Every other Disney's mom is dead. So, all I want to say about that is just lay off. Leave these women alone. They are
Yeah.
not the villain in the story. They are not Mother Gothel of Tangled. They are moms, human, flawed, and absolutely in love with their families. And I think that was beautiful. And so, like, knock it off.
Yeah.
And then just to kind of tie it up, with my review overall of the film is that there's a lot to be said about this truly fun and amazing film, and I loved it on so many levels. I identified really strongly with May, like I said, specifically through her connection with her family, the very strong matriarchal line of women. Definitely have that in my family. Her obsessions with boy bands, boys, and attention, and that like strong desire to do the best and needing to be told that you did the best, and
Yeah.
um being the one who's doing good. Like being the golden child, 100%, that pressure was my entire existence. Like I had to be the one that did it. I had to be
Yeah.
the one who gets the good grades and performs the best. And that has contributed to a lot of my anxiety now
Yeah.
and why I overperform in most things. Um, so I super strongly relate to a lot of things that are happening in here because this is a film about learning to love yourself, but it's also about the emotional connection between a mother and daughter. And then it's also about the dual identity of this Asian Canadian girl who is being in like being mixed myself. I understood the stress of straddling those two realities, of performing the role of daughter at home and someone else entirely in the world. And
Yeah.
director Jung Hee Shi said about the red panda specifically, after visiting a sanctuary. They said they're native to China. You got it? they're native to China, and then also it's like red and white. It's like Chinese, but also the colors of the Canadian flag too. So it felt like the perfect animal to tell this story about the Chinese Canadian teenage girl. And so much of this like film is Domhee's own experiences. Like she doesn't turn into a red panda as far as I know, but whole tension between her and her mom, the changing, like the fact that like red pandas are seen as like a good symbol, like all of those things are really built from her experiences. And even though it's like takes place in Toronto and it takes place at a time period for her, all of those things felt so relatable to me. I was like, oh my God, this is about me. Um, and there are many pressures on children of families that feel the intense weight of societal expectations on them. And there's an experience here that is very unique to Asian Canadians and Asian Americans or other mixed race families that add to the story. May is seen as this golden child, and she holds on her shoulders the weight of the future and the respect of the whole city that she lives in. She must be the best version of herself and please her mother. And when she stops doing that, she becomes this red panda. And though this film is very much a puberty film, it's also about allowing ourselves to let go and to feel. Like in Inside Out, our protagonist learns that it's okay to show all her emotions, that they are a piece of her, and do not make her any less worthy of love or praise. I really like the film, if you can't tell. And I continue to like read things about it and hear about people. Um, and it just always surprises me when people have certain negative reviews where I'm like, that's nothing. You're saying nothing. You're just like outing yourself as not understanding other people's experiences. Like, I get it.
Yeah, they're like, I'm trying to stay relevant desperately. Also just like really bold of like a white man to be like, I'm gonna talk about this girl's puberty experience because it doesn't relate to me. It was just like, what?
Well, it's just like the people who like think reverse racism exists, right? It's
Yeah,
like the same people who got mad at Jordan Peele for saying he doesn't want to cast a white man are like, that's racist. It's like that's you don't know what that word means,
yeah,
first of all. And you're not listening.
yeah.
He's not saying no, like no one should ever make films with
Yeah, it's
white
just he's not
protagonists.
gonna.
Like he's not gonna do that. It doesn't make any sense for him to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah. People really be out here. Like go back inside. Go back
Shh,
inside.
it's okay. Just let the new
Not
stuff
everyone's red
happen.
panda should come out. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You should
Okay.
accept your monster.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's like a pretty I love that it was shaped around this like millennial experience in a lot of ways too, because are a lot of the first time generation to like break through generational curses or generational like
Mhm.
trauma, and like make changing situations, both in like accepting mental health, self-acceptance, et cetera, et cetera.
So real.
So it was very real to have our main character like it be framed in the 90s, I believe, right?
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, because it's just like one, it's like cool. Now all the 90s kids who are watching this along with the children will like feel seen,
Because it's
but
like early
also,
2000s.
yeah, I
It
mean,
feels
like
like it's in middle school.
either way, I feel like, yeah, the younger generations and were
Mhm.
still in there
Yeah,
deep.
definitely. Well, it was in
Um,
our bracket of like
yeah,
we were all those kids who had a lot of pressure to perform and be
yeah.
the best. And
Grades
like
equaled love. What do you
yeah.
mean?
Everyone gets a trophy kind of thing too. So it's like so now we're always expecting trophies. It's a whole thing.
If I'm not perfect all the time, I don't deserve
I
love
have
and should
failed.
be dead
Yeah.
now.
If I am not working
I
myself
have
into the ground, I'm not
proven
working at
to
all.
yeah, I've proven to everybody that I shouldn't have been born in the first place.
I'm just confirming
Um,
everything I've always thought.
these are not things I should talk about in therapy. What?